Rebecca, a Sunnybrook Farm, Part 1. The stagecoach was rolling along the dusty road that runs from Maplewood to Riverboro. The day was warm, but it was only the middle of May. Mr. Jeremiah Cobb carried the mail with one passenger in the coach, a small dark-haired girl in a dress. She was slender and slid from space to space on the leather cushions. She braced herself with her feet and extended her hands on each side in order to remain in her seat. Whenever the wheels sank into a rut or jolted suddenly over a stone, she bounced off her seat into the air and came down again, and pushed back her little straw hat. Mr. Cobb thought nothing of these discomforts of travel. His business was to carry mail and people to their destinations, not necessarily to make them comfortable on the way. Earlier, when he was about to leave the post office in Maplewood, that morning a woman had come up to him and asked if this was the Riverboro stage and if he was Mr. Cobb. After he answered yes, she smiled to the child, who might have been 10 or 11 years old. Her mother had helped her into the stagecoach, deposited a bundle beside her, and paid the fare. "I want you to take her to my sister's in Riverboro," she said. "Do you know Mary Andy and Jane Sayer? They live in the brick house." He replied, "I know them." "Well, she's going there, and they are expecting her. Will you keep an eye on her, please? Goodbye, Rebecca. Sit quiet, so you will look neat when you get there. Don't be any trouble for Mr. Cobb." "Goodbye, Mother, and don't worry. You know that I have traveled before." Mr. Cobb slapped the reins, and the horses started on their daily task. The stage was under way now, and Rebecca had to put her head out of the window, while Mrs. Randall watched the stage out of sight, and as she rose to her feet for a moment, shading her eyes with her hand, looking at the cloud of dust in the distance. "Mirandy will have her hands full, I guess," she said to herself. All this had been a few minutes ago. Now Mr. Cobb suddenly heard a small voice above the rattle and rumble of the wheels. At first he thought it was a tree toad or a bird, but he turned his head over his shoulder and saw a small head hanging out of the window as far as safety would allow. "Please let me speak," she called. Mr. Cobb drew up the horses and obediently and stopped. "Does it cost any more to ride up there with you?" she asked. "Is it so slippery down here, and the stage is much too big for me that I rattle around in it?" Mr. Cobb waited until she finished speaking and said, "You can come up if you want to. There's no extra charge to sit beside me."